The air in the Capitol was thick with anticipation. Rumors had been swirling all week that Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett would finally address the sudden surge of political noise coming from the most unlikely of sources, Barron Trump. At only 19, the youngest Trump had stepped out from his usual shadowy presence and into the political spotlight, emboldened by his father's loyal base and armed with the same brand of inherited arrogance. But what happened next would take everyone off guard. Jasmine Crockett didn't mince words. Standing at the podium during a post-session press briefing, she looked directly into the cameras, her voice calm but cutting. "You can't inherit credibility," she began. "You can't inherit leadership. And you sure as hell can't inherit the right to decide the future of a nation you've never worked a day to build." Her gaze locked as if Barron himself were in the room. The remark hit harder than expected. Staffers exchanged nervous glances. Journalists scrambled to record every syllable. Crockett leaned forward, her voice dropping just enough to sharpen the sting. "You are the son of a man who failed this country. And if we let you, you'll finish what he started. That's not ambition. That's a threat to the Republic." Within hours, clips of her statement were everywhere. TikTok edits, Instagram reels, and late-night monologues dissected every word. Barron, up until now known mostly for being a quiet background figure, suddenly found himself in the middle of a political hurricane. The Trump camp wasted no time firing back. Statements were issued calling Crockett's comments unhinged and an attack on a young man's future. But for Jasmine, this wasn't personal in the way her critics tried to frame it. By the next morning, the political chatter machine was in overdrive. Cable news panels debated whether Jasmine Crockett had crossed the line or spoken the truth nobody else dared to say. But what really lit the fire was Barron Trump's first-ever public political response. Standing in front of a gilded podium at a charity event in Palm Beach, Barron, towering over the microphones, delivered a speech dripping with the kind of polished disdain only a Trump could muster. "Some people," he said, "think they can attack me because I carry my father's name. But the truth is, they're afraid. Afraid that the next generation of Trumps will succeed where they failed." The crowd, mostly wealthy donors and die-hard loyalists, erupted into applause. Barron smirked, clearly enjoying his debut as a political combatant. But what he didn't expect was how fast Jasmine would fire back. Within hours, she was live on MSNBC, leaning in toward the camera with a half-smile that carried more bite than warmth. "Barron wants to talk about fear? Here's the truth. The only thing this country should be afraid of is another Trump with a megaphone and zero understanding of what public service actually means. You can't tweet your way into governing. You can't buy integrity with daddy's money." Then came the line that froze the studio in stunned silence. "You're not the next generation of leadership, Barron. You're just the sequel to a failed experiment that nearly destroyed us." Social media erupted. Hashtags like "or sequel to failure" and "Crockett cuts deep" began trending within hours. Meme accounts had a field day, editing Barron into movie posters titled "The Trumpening 2, America's Downfall." Political strategists from both sides, 2 days later, Barron Trump decided to double down. In what appeared to be a carefully coordinated move, he sat down for an exclusive interview with a friendly conservative network. The studio was set to make him look presidential: dark suit, red tie, a backdrop of the American flag. The host teed up the question with a grin. "Barron, Congresswoman Crockett had some colorful things to say about you. How do you respond?" Barron leaned forward, voice smooth but loaded with quiet venom. "I think it's sad, really. She's trying to make a name for herself by attacking me, a young man who's just starting his public life. Maybe she should focus on fixing the problems in her own district instead of obsessing over the Trumps. Sounds like jealousy to me." Clips of his statement were replayed across conservative media all day. The word jealousy became a talking point, echoed by pundits and even a few Republican lawmakers. But Jasmine Crockett wasn't the type to let a narrative settle without smashing it to pieces. That evening, during a live town hall in Dallas, she addressed the jealousy jab head-on, and without restraint. Standing at the podium, she glanced at the crowd, then straight into the camera. Jealous? Of what? Of inheriting your life without earning a day of it? Of never working a real job, never knowing what struggle feels like, and thinking you're entitled to lead this country because of your last name? No, Barron. I'm not jealous. I'm concerned. Concerned that you'll grow into exactly the kind of leader your father was. And that's the last thing America needs. The audience roared. Applause thundered through the room, and then she twisted the knife. You call yourself the future. I call you a time bomb with a trust fund. The moment went viral instantly. The backlash from Jasmine Crockett's time bomb with a trust fund comment was instant, and it didn't just come from political pundits. The next morning, an unexpected defender entered the fray. Melania Trump. In a rare public statement posted to her social media account, she wrote, Congresswoman Crockett's attack on my son is disgraceful. Barron is a young man with integrity, intelligence, and a bright future ahead of him. It is shameful for an elected official to target a private citizen, especially a child. The word child lit a fuse online. Critics immediately pointed out that Barron was 19, legally an adult, and already making political statements on national television. But for Trump loyalists, Melania's message was gospel, and hashtags like Leave Barron Alone began trending. Cable news turned it into a full-blown saga. One network played Melania's statement over dramatic music, as if she had just defended the last heir to a throne. Another network invited former White House aides to speculate that this was a strategic move to build Barron's presidential image early. That evening, Jasmine Crockett responded, not with an angry rant, but with a surgical strike. She posted a 2-minute video to her own social media accounts, leaning casually in her office chair, the Capitol dome visible through the window behind her. I respect every mother's instinct to protect her child, she began. But when that child steps into the political arena, makes political statements, and takes political positions, they don't get to hide behind a "do not criticize me" sign. She paused, letting the silence build. Barron Trump is old enough to vote, old enough to influence voters, and apparently old enough to run his mouth on national TV. That makes him old enough to be held accountable. If Melania's defense had stirred the pot, Donald Trump's response dumped a whole barrel of gasoline into the fire. The former president didn't waste time crafting a polished statement. Instead, he went live at one of his rallies in Ohio, in front of a roaring crowd of supporters. She's a nasty, nasty woman, Trump barked into the mic, his voice dripping with that familiar mix of mockery and rage. Jasmine Crockett, the most disrespectful member of Congress, maybe in history. She's attacking my wonderful son, Barron, who, by the way, is smarter, taller, and better looking than any of these losers in Washington. She's jealous. That's what it is. She's jealous because Barron is destined for greatness. The crowd erupted, chanting, Barron! Barron! Like they were at a prize fight. Clips of the rally hit social media within minutes, spliced with close-ups of Trump jabbing his finger in the air, his face flushed with anger. Fox News looped the moment on repeat, calling it a father's powerful defense. But Jasmine Crockett wasn't rattled. If anything, she looked energized. The very next morning, she appeared live on MSNBC, wearing a sharp crimson blazer and a calm, deliberate smile. When Donald Trump calls me nasty, I take it as confirmation that I'm doing my job, she said, her tone ice cold. He's upset because I told the truth. And when Trump hears the truth, he does what he's always done. He yells, he insults, and he plays the victim. Barron Trump is not some innocent bystander. He's a grown man. He's already choosing to play politics, and if the Trumps want to put him on that stage, they better be ready for him to face real questions and real consequences. The clip went viral instantly, with supporters saying she just bodied Trump on national TV. By midday, the headlines had shifted. It wasn't just Barron versus Jasmine anymore. It was shaping up to be Trump versus Crockett. The pressure had been building all week, and Barron Trump, quiet no more, decided it was time to speak for himself. Late Friday evening, a live notification popped up on Instagram. Barron Trump official, live. Tens of thousands of viewers poured in within minutes. He sat in what looked like a dimly lit study, wearing a crisp white polo, his posture stiff, his jaw tight. "I've stayed out of the political mess," Barron began, voice steady but slightly nervous. "But this Congresswoman Crockett, she thinks she can disrespect my family, my father, and me. I'm not going to let that slide. She's a career politician, a nothing burger, and if she thinks I'm afraid of her, she's got another thing coming." He leaned closer to the camera, eyes narrowing. "You call my dad a failed president? He built the strongest economy in history. You call me dangerous? Lady, you've done nothing but grandstand in Congress for clout. I might be younger, but I'll debate you anytime, anywhere, if you've got the guts." The comment section exploded. MAGA supporters flooded in with fire emojis and Barron 2028 spam, while critics mocked his delivery, calling it rich kid cosplay politics. But then, he slipped. "Look," he said, smirking, "America doesn't need more people like her, people who whine about democracy while trying to tear it down. When I'm in office—" He froze, catching himself, but the damage was done. The chat erupted in a frenzy. "In office? Is Barron running?" Clips hit TikTok within minutes. Supporters treated it like a rallying cry. Detractors pounced, framing it as proof the Trumps were grooming him for power. By Saturday morning, Jasmine Crockett had already seized the moment. By Monday morning, the Barron Trump "When I'm in office" clip had reached every corner of the internet. Cable news panels debated whether it was a Freudian slip or an intentional tease. Conservative pundits spun it as a breath of fresh leadership, while late-night comedians compared him to a trust fund intern applying for CEO. Jasmine Crockett? She was silent. No interviews, no tweets, just quiet until Tuesday afternoon. The House Judiciary Committee was mid-session when Crockett finally made her move. Barron wasn't there, but millions would watch what happened next. Cameras caught her leaning into the microphone with that slow, deliberate confidence that meant she was about to end someone's week. "You know," she began, her voice calm but dripping with precision, "I hear the latest Trump protege is already planning his inauguration speech. Barron, honey, you haven't even paid your first rent check, and you want the keys to the country?" The room chuckled nervously. She didn't stop. "I get it. It's easy to think you're ready to lead when you've lived your whole life in a bubble. But here's the truth. Democracy is not your inheritance. It's a responsibility. And if you're anything like your father, thin-skinned, allergic to facts and obsessed with power, then the last place you belong is in the Oval Office. Frankly, you're not the heir to a legacy, you're the sequel to a disaster." Gasps. Audible gasps. Some Republicans shifted in their seats, others scowled, but the Democrats' side of the room was grinning. She closed with a surgical strike. "So here's my challenge, Barron. Before you run for president, try running a grocery store, or better yet, try running from the truth. It'll catch you faster than I will."